Welcome back to the Chattanooga Film Festival. You know me, I'm Dustin, and at this point you've experienced our super secret sneak screening of American Comic, directed by Daniel Clark, a brilliant send-up of contemporary stand-up culture anchored by a fabulous dual performance, or is it, by Joe Kwaczala. I am honored and plumb tickled, to be frank, to welcome these gentlemen to our little corner of cyberspace to pick their brains about their extremely funny film. Hello, fellas, and thank you so much for joining us this year.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, just to kick us off, talk to me about this beautiful sort of Reese's peanut butter and chocolate style melding of taste that is the two of you making a movie like this. And I mean, like, let's go back to the beginning. Let's tell us the story that leads to making American Comic.
Yeah, well, our collaborative relationship goes back 17 years or something, when we were like teenagers in school. And Daniel and I quickly found a partnership that really completed one another. I'm a writer and I'm an actor, and Daniel does literally everything else that isn't writing and acting. Those are the last two things he wants to do. And so, kind of from then on and off, we didn't always live in the same city, but we have had this thing of making sketches, and Daniel directs them and realizes them after I've written them, and then I act in them. And so we just have a really long and quite, if I may say so myself, prolific history of making things. And we had made a fake documentary short about Jay Christopher, because this came out of it as a stand-up, as someone who's done stand-up for, since around the same time we met, really. Mm-hmm. I just have so much I want to say about stand-up. I want to make fun of it. Everyone's so stupid. And that short was specifically about this thing I had noticed that we didn't incorporate in the movie, but it was that stand-ups like to, there's a trope in stand-up of having a punchline that's a detail plus emotion. Mm-hmm. Which would be, blah, 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 whatever your setup is. And then, I'm full of beef jerky and regret. like that was, and we would just see, I would see a lot of that same punchline.
It's mimetic. I see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm full with Cheeto dust and despair, right? Like it's that you have a little detail and then you have an emotion. Anyway, we made a sketch about that starred Jay Christopher, and it got a good response, especially from comics. But this was 2018, so it wasn't until 5 or 6 years later where the idea to revisit that and make it a feature film, but also use it as a way to take every experience and opinion and rage and happiness, every emotion I've experienced about stand-up, and everything I've dealt with in the way I feel about the culture right now, and filter it through a fake documentary about stand-up. And Daniel, you can speak a little bit to how that, I was bringing to it my history as stand-up, but this at the same rate, Daniel's bringing to it his history as a for real documentarian.
Yeah, and there are a lot of documentaries about comedy out there, stand-ups especially, and they're all very, they think that stand-up is a special art form. They're all philosophers. But at the end of the day, that's only a handful of people, and most of them are just guys telling jokes, which is fine, and that's all it needs to be.
Sure.
So we wanted to explore that, and when it came to making a feature, we could have gone the more traditional route and just come up with an idea, but this idea of a mockumentary really appealed to me because I knew that we could just pull it off with a real low footprint. Mm-hmm. Just calling all the favors from all the venues that we have and all the friends who are willing to come in for a day and act in a part. And we could shoot this thing, and there's a lot of freedom in documentary editing. There's a lot of freedom in documentary filmmaking that it didn't feel like an impossible task. In fact, at one point I was saying to Joe, like we were getting ready to shoot, and I was like, something feels wrong. And Joe's like, is it because it doesn't feel hard? I was like, yeah, it doesn't feel hard. What's wrong? And it's like, oh, because we can just go do it. And it doesn't have to be, it was hard. It was hard to do, but it wasn't impossible to get off the ground and for people to be part of it and for us to execute it in the way we did.
Well, there's
and I just want to quickly say for context, just so everybody understands, Daniel is an Emmy nominated documentary editor and has made he's made a documentary feature film. So that's how Daniel was able to slip into this role so easily, and why we realized we could do this with our own expertise, because Daniel, you've neglected to mention this, but
I forgot to say that I direct documentaries also.
right. And so we knew we could do this because I had seen, Daniel directed a movie called Behind the Curve. That's a brilliant documentary about flat earthers. And I know that
it's fucking fantastic. I love
the
that
best.
film.
And the fact that he was able to do that truly independently, I saw, okay, let's harness that. I will just write a script and we will still take that approach, but we can make something else using Daniel's like unique ability to stretch $1 and make something almost out of nothing.
And it's I think that it is a special kind of satire and a special kind of mockumentary that feels like really real in places. And I think that in your director's note, you mentioned shooting this under pretty real circumstances. And I think that also kind of serves this faux narrative in a really real and textured way. Can you talk about some of those circumstances that you shot this under that maybe it was real? Maybe for that moment, it kind of was documentary and not mockumentary?
Yeah, there are elements of this that are hybrid in that way, because we knew what was going to happen, but we shot it in front of real audiences a lot of the time. And so Joe can speak to this a little better as the performer who was up on stage in front of these real people. They knew we were filming something, but they didn't know that Joe was in a character. And Joe, why don't you speak to the rest of that?
Yeah, I mean, this all stems from the fact that there's a decent amount of television and movies that show stand-up, but I feel like they never quite nail it. You watch it and it just feels staged. It feels like the circumstances that often are required to do something, which is you have to bring in extras. They have to be there for hours. You have to tell this joke that is written by a writer's room or written in the script. It's not road tested. It is. And so the circumstances are so sterile. And as a stand-up, and I want to say for a general audience maybe as well, you can kind of tell, like, this is off. Like, this doesn't feel like stand-up. And I know you can film stand-up because you can film stand-up. There are stand-up specials, right? And so I felt strongly like the way to get the authenticity and also kind of our DIY attitude approaching this film, we had to shoot this at real shows, and we kind of couldn't tell the audience what was happening because we needed them to react like a real audience. And so we would, and Daniel says they knew we were filming if they saw the camera. Like sometimes
it's kind of got it's a jackass element to it, right? Like you're, almost pranking people, right?
Yeah, and it's not 100% hidden, but sometimes, Daniel, like at the Lincoln Lodge in Chicago, you were in a dark room with a camera in the corner. I don't think everybody necessarily saw that you were filming. And also, it's kind of a thing right now in stand-up to film your sets. If you're ever on Instagram and you're just scrolling, you will see like, oh, every stand-up has a tripod and a camera.
Oh, yeah. And they all put up crowd work only because they don't want to put their bits on
exactly.
on Instagram.
The idea of filming at a stand-up show is not that unusual anymore. So if someone sees a camera, that's probably what they think is happening. Like they probably don't assume we are making a feature film. And so what we would do is I would usually jump onto someone's show that already existed. Like I knew we would be in Chicago for these days, and I would hit up people I knew. I kind of came up in the Chicago scene, so I know some people there. And I'd say, can I sneak on, do 5-10 minutes on this show? I never needed 10. But I often didn't even need 5, but it would be like, all right, can I do a set on this show? And so it's already established, right? There's an audience there to see just a comedy show. There are going to be real comedians in there. And then I'm going to sneak in there in the middle. I'm going to have the host bring me up as Jay or Jovan. And then I'm going to do my set and we are going to get what happens.
It's awesome. Talk about the writing process here. Was there even really a script, like broad strokes, outline? How did that go?
Yeah, I would say it was very scripted. ultimately. Like, I don't know, we had done some test shoots before this just to kind of get a sense of like the feel for it and how we want it to sound and look. And I just kind of improvised as Dan was shooting, and I didn't like what I was doing. I really appreciate getting out. And listen, I come from a stand-up background. I don't come from an improv background. And so I like getting the thing that I want to say out there and getting it out there succinctly. Now, that might mean we take the words, I remember them how I remember them. I get the gist of it. But I would say, Daniel, I don't know if you have any different recollections of this. It's pretty much like we knew what we needed down to the stand-up sets themselves. Now, I did work on I wrote the jokes in the script, and they're obviously all new jokes, but I would write those jokes, but I would take them. I did a few open mics before we hit the road. And even while we were filming some of these shows, some of them ended up being like practice shows. Maybe we would use some of it in the final thing, but I really loaded up on shows, and I would run these jokes, and then I would tweak them based on the reaction from the audience. Because what was important to us as well is obviously these guys suck, but you kind of need to believe that they could be doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. They are both kind of funny. Like,
yeah.
And that's exactly from a character perspective. Absolutely. That's where they need to be in order for any of the plot, so to speak, to make sense.
Totally. And like a discerning viewer might be like, I think that joke sucks, but we wanted those jokes to work.
Yeah.
And
that's fascinating. You were targeting kind of funny, and you nailed it. if that's the thing, for those particular characters and their style of comedy. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Well, of course. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because when as I've operated in the stand-up scene over the last decade and a half, you see these comedians who seem to be doing well, but to my friends, we're all like, this guy fucking sucks. Like, what do we like? How is he
here?
Why does he keep like kind of failing upwards? And like sometimes the audiences are eating it up, and like this stuff is hacky, or this doesn't really. And so that was the most fluid stuff in the film, I would say, is the jokes, because I would tell them, and I was like, my instincts are kicking in, and I have to follow them to make these jokes better and really make them work in front of the crowd, and so that ultimately the final product would feel right. But Daniel, in terms of like the just improv, I would say John Eisenrich, who plays the weird fan, who's like kind of following me around, he probably brought the most. He has an improv background, and he's an old friend of mine. He probably brought the most improv in his scenes, and it was to the delight of both of us.
Yeah, I mean, Joe wrote the script very tightly, and we did follow it pretty closely. But yeah, John would occasionally just say something, and we're like, well, that's in the movie now. And like the thing about I told your mom about your podcast, she doesn't get it. I don't think that was written.
I think some version of that, but he elevated it with however he said it and delivered it.
Talking to me as the camera operator was not expected. And it was just a bunch of little things like that he really brought to the table and lit it up. But it's always really fun to go from the script that we had and then to put it in like get Sam in there and him saying the words, and it was all working really well.
Sam, who plays Dan, my opener, and the guy who Jay is on the road with for a lot of the movie,
leaves Jay in the dust at the end.
Yeah.
You were talking about Joe, you were talking about general audiences and kind of what they may get from this, as opposed to maybe someone who's a little bit more in the know about comedy or the stand-up culture. But I do think that general audiences are going to dig the hell out of this, but I'm especially excited about putting this in front of my comedy nerd kind of friends that really will get the deep cuts in the film. It feels like you're taking aim at some awfully specific and timely trends in the stand-up scene. So, and this is what I would like for you to do, if you could, without naming names, of course. What were some of those hyper granular stand-up culture type things you knew that you had to lampoon in this project? Like, what were those that you were targeting? Were there like 3 or 6 or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I have made a promise to myself that I won't say any names when I'm talking about the inspirations for this, just as a rule. But it's also because any type any like archetype or moment or trend that we are lampooning, I would say you can probably, there's at least 5, 10 comedians that you can pinpoint in that moment, and which is important to us because it's not like we are intending to take someone specifically down. What's more interesting to us is there's a phenomenon happening with this thing that is affecting a lot of different comedians and will likely be more universal in that regard. And then this thing probably isn't going to end. It will evolve and become a different thing, but like it will always kind of apply by not being too specific to one person. I would also say like nearly every moment in the film is inspired by something real. Like whether it's direct or whether it's just kind of an overall feeling. But obviously, you know, Jay is a podcaster. Like that is podcasting. And we were shooting this before, I think, I don't know. It just felt like there would be things that happened after the production that we would point to and be like, oh yeah, we were tapping into this already. This community of podcasters that seem to be flirting with the fringes of the. I don't even know how to fully describe without getting too specific, but like.
Sure. Even I feel like even that's already evolving. Like the stand up with a podcast, you know, it was stand ups in a room and now it's stand ups on stage with a podcast or a video podcast that is a live event as well. And like it's already like moved beyond like this one room thing and it's already changing. And that I find that fascinating too.
Totally. And there is something like the evolution of the podcast from stand up is leading to a dark place as well. Like you see at the end of the movie where, you know, is Jay in denial or does he just not care about like the types of fans that Jim Kavanaugh is attracting, fans and guests, and the kind of extremes that stand-up is going towards. And then there's a few conversations in this movie that were conversations that I've had with people almost word for word. It's I
won't pry, but
no.
I feel like I can not in specific conversations, of course, but I feel like I got like a good number of them, and I'm not way into stand-up culture, but like some of them I was just like, okay, yeah, I know this speaks to me directly. I know
for sure.
And
yeah,
even if it's not just one person, it could be like a few people that I see on Instagram or Reels or whatever, and I'm just like, they're all tapping into this one kind of thing, and sure enough, you guys cover that thing, right?
We tried to, and it's almost hard for me to like pull a specific moment because I'm like, oh, let me start from the beginning of the movie. All right, this thing. All right, this I got this from this guy. I'm in a green room. He said this and this. Oh, I heard the story about this. You know what I mean? Where it's like almost everything I can draw it back. So it's like it's almost overwhelming.
Daniel, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Not from that perspective, no. But it was. I will say we were in green rooms just before shows or not filming, and people would say to Joe, "Oh, this is about this person," and I'd be like, "No, it's not specifically." And they're like, "Oh, this person? No. Oh, well, it reminds me a lot of that guy."
Yeah, that was always such a win when someone would bring up someone who I'd never even thought of, but I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I guess it does."
Yeah, exactly.
It makes it feel like it's universal. Also, that reminded me, Daniel, when you're saying that, we were shooting the scene where Jay is trying to do a drop-in on shows, and he's being really annoying, being like, "Hey, I can drop in. I'm just like rolling through town, whatever." And they're like, "No, you can't." So we shot that scene, and then as we were leaving where we shot, because we did that before a show, in the same way that we wanted to shoot in real green rooms and real in front of real audiences. Like if it was we had to shoot before a show, we were like, let's go to a show that's about to happen. It'll look like a show's about to happen, right? And as we're like kind of packing up the gear and ready to leave and saying thank you to the people who helped us, we overheard a guy doing exactly what I just did.
Exactly.
It really,
wow.
We made, we couldn't say it because, he was a few feet away, but we looked at each other like, are you hearing this? He's doing almost exactly what Jay did. He's saying like, can I get up? I'm just rolling through town. We were like, I cannot. This is too good.
God, that's amazing.
That was well.
That's a great story, and this will probably be my last question. But I always like to ask if there were any funny or weird stories from the production you'd like to share. That's a perfect example. But was there something like maybe potentially disastrous that you can look back on now and laugh, or like maybe like an unexpected windfall of serendipity that benefited the film in some way? Do you have a story about something like that?
Well, what comes to mind is that I perhaps foolishly wrote a scene where Jovan kisses a celebrity's ass, right? And so I was like, and it was written in the script as celebrity. Celebrity walks in, Jovan runs to them, and then is like weird around them. And then it was like, oh, I kind of think we can't do this scene without an actual celebrity. It like won't feel right. And then it was like, okay, well, who do we? I know some people. Let's see if we can do this. And it was really hard to do because it's like it's a movie that's like it's independent in like a very independent way. Sure. Like There's not so much we can offer when we this is an important scene, so we did, but it's just like literally. And if there's a celebrity who has anything else going on that day, they're going to choose that over this. So we asked a decent amount of people, and we just got no after no. And I didn't ask Patton Oswalt because I was like, well, he's like one of the big, he has 10 jobs at any given time. He's not going to be able to do this. So I was asking people lower on the list than Patton because I just assumed Patton he just wouldn't be able to do it.
But God bless him.
It got to a point where it's like, well,
Patton's
Hail
so
Mary.
game. It's amazing how game he is for so much.
No one was saying yes. So I was like, yeah, let's just throw this out at the last second and see if he can do it. And then, I'm lucky to know him a little bit, but I have to admit that like not super well. He's been very complimentary about the work Daniel and I have done in a way that like I didn't even know what he had seen. He was saying some stuff to us on set that was like, oh, you saw that? Like I didn't even. Wow. But yeah, he was game. He told me exactly when he could do it, and we were like, okay, let's we will set this up around him. I want to be very. He's being very generous with his time. I want to make sure we meet him with a level of professionalism, and that we can shoot him out really quickly, and that we have the amount of gratitude that it's clear that we appreciate his time. So it's like, let's get 2 cameras this time. I'm going to tell the other cast that's in the green room to show up like an hour, or maybe even like we were there 2 hours before he was going to get there. I told the cast to get there an hour before. And so it's like, we are going to rehearse it so that when he gets here, we will be ready. We can shoot this 2 cameras, do it like what, Daniel, like 3 times. And then like we will say, thank you, we got it. So great. This is the idea. So Daniel and I get there 2 hours early. We're setting up. Maybe like a half an hour, 40 minutes into us setting up, Patton shows up before we told the other cast.
Great.
Get there. And I'm like, hey, Patton, what's up? And I know you don't, there's no point in being like, you're here early. You just be like, thank you.
Welcome.
This is great. Oh my God. And then I'm texting the cast like, maybe we should get here right now. And we had to, I'm glad I told them to show up an hour early than right when we thought he was showing up. And we were a little like, how do we, but luckily Daniel, like you can attest it.
Yeah.
It worked out. And luckily Patton's very cool and everything. We rehearsed it. There was one cast member who was like a little bit late, but it turned out we got what we needed, and he was very game, like you said, Dustin, and very cool.
That's amazing. Dan, do you have any stories from like the more production side of things, like any unexpected blessings or curses that came along that you had to kind of contend with in an interesting way?
Yeah, I would say like anytime I was worried about, like, for instance, the gas station shot at the very end, we didn't really know what we were getting into when we started shooting that. And we're just like, we're just going to go to this gas station on the side of the road. And
this was the first shot of
first thing we shot in Chicago area. It was the very first day of production, really. Mm-hmm. And we get there and it's just like, couldn't be more picture perfect for what we needed. and we didn't get bothered at all by the gas station attendant who was like sleeping, didn't care what we were doing. We were so anxious because we're used to LA production where everybody doesn't want you there. But in Chicago and Indianapolis and all these different places that we shot at, people would be like, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "Oh no, here it comes. They're going to kick us out." And they said, "Sounds cool. Do you need any help?"
Yeah, because that gas station, it's like I would have to go in and out because we shot. There's a lot of timing of like the car drives off, I walk out of the gas station, the car backs up. So there was more choreography than we were used to, and so I had to keep going in and out of the gas station, and it would keep going ding ding, ding ding. So it's like I can't really do this that discreetly, like it's making a noise. Yeah, and I think maybe one time the guy working behind the counter was like, "Do you need anything?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Okay." We just kept going.
Yeah, we just got it. And yeah, it turned out perfectly. And that was just a good sign for the rest of everything else that we had to do. It was like, all right, we can pull this off now. I was nervous going into that because I was like, if this doesn't work out, how am I going to get the rest of it together? Because we had a lot packed into a short amount of time, and we just got it right away. And yeah, everything felt right in that moment. And nothing more satisfying than getting the shot and going like, all right, we got the end of the movie now. Let's get everything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I think that's all I've got. Thank you both so much for talking to me today. This has been absolutely killer. Of course, we love the film. Can't wait to get more people to see it. If you have not seen it yet and you're somehow here, you need to find your way back over to Eventive and click on our super secret sneak screening, and that will allow you to watch American Comic. And it's a thing that you absolutely should do. And I guess I'll just leave it there. Thank you both. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. This was great. We appreciate your support.